The ship moved slowly through the dark space, its metal skin covered with burns and holes. Commander Zelthrax stood at the window and looked down at the blue and green planet below. His hands shook slightly. He had lived for over 1,000 years, but now his time was ending. The planet turned slowly beneath them. White clouds drifted across vast oceans. Green forests covered the land. It looked peaceful from up here. But Zelthrax knew better. The creatures down there spent most of their time fighting each other. They built weapons instead of hospitals. They drew lines on maps and killed anyone who crossed them. "Commander, the sickness is spreading faster now," said his medical officer. Her name was Yelthra, and she had been his friend for 3 centuries. Her skin, which used to glow with soft blue light, now flickered weakly. "We have maybe 2 weeks before we lose our minds." Zelthrax nodded. He had known this was coming. They all had. The Kreth had won their war not with weapons that destroyed ships, but with something far worse. The poison they had created attacked the very core of what made a Velthron alive. It spread through their bodies like fire through dry grass. First came the pain, then the confusion, then the madness, and finally, death. "How many of us are left?" Zelthrax asked, though he already knew the answer. 612 on this ship. Perhaps a few thousand scattered across other vessels. If they survived. Yelthra's voice broke. "Out of billions, Commander. Billions." The Velthrons had been a great people once. They had built cities that touched the clouds. They had cured every disease. They had explored 100 star systems and made friends with a dozen other species. They had spent 10,000 years creating beauty and knowledge and peace, but they had never learned how to fight a war. When the Kreth came, the Velthrons had tried to talk. They offered friendship. They shared their technology. They believed that any species advanced enough to travel between stars must be reasonable enough to choose peace. They were wrong. The Kreth killed everyone they met. They took the Velthron gifts and used them to build better weapons. They destroyed world after world. And when the Velthrons finally understood that talking would not work, it was already too late. Their fleets burned. Their cities fell. Their people died. The few who escaped ran to the edges of known space. They looked for somewhere safe to hide. Somewhere to spend their last days in peace. They found Earth. "It is a worthless planet," said Yelthra, looking at the world below. "The dominant species is barely civilized. They have just invented flying machines. They cannot even leave their own atmosphere. They fight constant wars over land and resources and ideas. They will probably destroy themselves within a few centuries." "Probably," Zelthrax agreed. "Then, why are we here?" Zelthrax turned away from the window. His old eyes were tired, but they still held purpose. "Because we have something they need. And because giving it to them costs us nothing." "The archive," Yelthra said slowly. "You want to give them the archive. All of it. Every piece of knowledge we have gathered in 10,000 years. Medical science that could cure their diseases. Engineering principles that could give them clean energy. Philosophy that could help them build better societies. Everything." Yelthra stared at him. "But they are primitives. Violent children who can barely make fire without burning themselves. What makes you think they could use our knowledge wisely?" "Nothing," Zelthrax admitted. "They might waste it. They might use it to build better weapons and kill each other faster. They might never even find it, but they might also use it to become something better than they are now." "That is a very small might, Commander." "Yes, it is, but we are dying, Yelthra. In 2 weeks, every Velthron in this ship will be gone. Our great civilization will be nothing but dust and memories. We have the power to leave behind one final gift, one last chance to do something good. Why should we not take it?" Yelthra was quiet for a long moment. Finally, she said, "Because hope is painful when it is all you have left." "Then let us give our hope to someone else," Zelthrax replied. "Let the humans carry it forward. Perhaps they will fail. But perhaps, just perhaps, they will surprise us all. The work began immediately. The Velthrons had very little time, and there was much to do. They took every piece of information they had and compressed it into crystal matrices that could survive for thousands of years. They included instructions in mathematical language, the one tongue that any advanced species would eventually understand. They chose 7 locations on Earth to hide the crystals: deep caves, ocean trenches, mountain peaks, places where the crystals would be safe from the primitive humans, but where they would eventually be found when human technology advanced far enough. Each archive contained the complete record of Velthron civilization: how to cure cancer, how to build engines that bent space, how to create artificial intelligence that served instead of enslaved, how to organize societies so that everyone had enough, how to reach the stars. But more than that, each archive contained the story of the Velthrons themselves, their history, their art, their music, their philosophy, the lessons they had learned in 10,000 years of existence, and the warnings about the Krith. They will come here eventually, Zelthrax told his team as they prepared the final archive. The Kreth expand in all directions. They kill every intelligent species they find. In a few centuries, maybe 1,000 years, they will reach this system. If the humans are still primitive, they will die. If they have learned from our gift, they might survive. You are betting our entire legacy on creatures who spend most of their time hitting each other with rocks, said one of his engineers. Yes, Zelthrax said simply, because betting on compassion and hope is better than dying with bitterness in our hearts. On the last day, when the madness was beginning to cloud his thoughts, Zelthrax recorded a final message. He stood in front of the camera and spoke slowly, choosing each word with care. To whoever finds this message, he began. We are the Velthrons. We were a great people once. We built wonders. We explored the universe. We believed in peace and knowledge and the essential goodness of thinking beings. We were wrong about many things, but we were right about this. Compassion is not weakness. It is the highest form of strength. He paused, gathering his fading thoughts. We give you this gift, not because you have earned it, but because giving requires no justification. We do not know who you are. We do not know if you are worthy. We know only that we have knowledge. And you might need it, and we will soon be gone. Use it well. Learn from our mistakes. Build something better than we built. And if you remember us at all, remember us kindly. Zelthrax stopped the recording. His hands were shaking badly now. He could feel the confusion creeping into his mind like fog. Soon he would not remember his own name. Soon he would not remember anything at all. But he had done what he could. The gift was given. The archives were hidden. 7 crystalline treasures waiting in the earth for someone to find them. He walked to the observation dome one last time. Down below, the primitive cities glowed in the darkness. Humans went about their small lives, completely unaware that above them, an ancient species was dying, completely unaware that buried in their world was knowledge that could change everything. I hope you are worth this, Zelthrax whispered to the planet below. I hope you find what we left. I hope you use it to become something beautiful. I hope you prove that compassion is not wasted on the undeserving, because everyone deserves a chance. The madness took him that night. By morning, Commander Zelthrax no longer knew who he was. By evening, he was dead. Within a week, every Velthron on the ship had followed him into darkness. The ship drifted silently in orbit for 3 months before its failing systems finally gave out. It fell through Earth's atmosphere, burning bright as it descended. A few humans saw the streak of light across the sky and made wishes on what they thought was a falling star. They did not know they were watching the funeral pyre of an entire civilization. The ashes scattered across the ocean. The wreckage sank to the bottom of the sea, and deep beneath the surface of the earth, in 7 hidden locations, The archives waited patiently for the day when humanity would be ready to receive the greatest gift they would ever be given. Dr. Colin Hayes pressed his gloved hand against the crystal surface. Even through the thick Antarctic cold, he could feel something strange about it. The crystal hummed with a vibration that seemed to exist just below the range of human hearing. Around him, his research team worked quickly. They all knew the government would classify this site within days. They had to document everything now. "This is impossible," said Dr. Lisa Grant. She held her scanner close to the crystal, reading numbers that made no sense. "The structure is maintaining quantum coherence at room temperature. Every physics textbook says that cannot happen." "Then every physics textbook is wrong," Colin replied. He had been studying the Nevada crystal for 3 years now. The breakthrough had come from his daughter Amy. Of all people. She was 10 years old and loved music. One day she looked at the data patterns and said they reminded her of sheet music. Colin had thought it was just a child's imagination. But he tried it anyway. The data was music. Complex, mathematical music that encoded information in ways human computers had never conceived. Once they understood the key, the crystal began to reveal its secrets. "There are 7 of these," Lisa said, looking at her notes. 7 locations: Nevada, Antarctica, the Mariana Trench, the Amazon rainforest, the Himalayan mountains, the Sahara Desert, the North Sea. "Why 7? "Redundancy," Colin said. "They wanted to make sure at least one would survive. They wanted to make absolutely certain we would find their message." "They," Lisa repeated. "The Velthrons. An alien species that died 3,000 years ago while humans were still learning to farm," Colin nodded. The story was almost too large to believe. An advanced civilization, facing extinction, had chosen to leave their entire accumulated knowledge as a gift for humanity. They had hidden it in crystals that would last millennia. They had written instructions in pure mathematics, knowing that any species smart enough to find the crystals would understand numbers. The media had gone crazy when the first crystal was discovered. Religious leaders debated what it meant. Some said it proved aliens existed. Others said it was a trick by the government. Politicians argued about who owned the technology. Everyone had an opinion, but scientists like Colin just felt grateful, and humbled, and determined not to waste the gift. The medical knowledge came first. The Velthrons had spent 10,000 years studying biology. They understood disease in ways humans had barely imagined. Within 2 years of decoding the medical archives, cancer became curable. Within 5 years, most genetic diseases could be corrected before birth. Within 10 years, human life expectancy doubled. The engineering knowledge came next. Clean energy that used quantum principles humans were just beginning to understand. Materials that were stronger than steel, but lighter than plastic. Engines that could bend space itself. The technological revolution happened so fast, it made the Industrial Revolution look slow. But it was the philosophy that changed everything. The Velthrons had included their entire history in the archives. Their art, their music, their poetry, their debates about ethics and morality, their struggles with the same questions humans struggled with. How to build a fair society. How to balance freedom with security. How to make decisions that affected millions of lives. They had also included their failures. The times they had been wrong. The times they had hurt each other. The times they had almost destroyed themselves. And the lessons they had learned from those mistakes. Reading the Velthron histories was like looking in a mirror that showed humanity what it could become. Not perfect, but better. Always striving to be better. Colin stood in the observation tent, looking out at the endless ice. Lisa stood beside him. They had been working together for 5 years now. They had decoded more archive data than anyone except the teams in Nevada and Japan. "There is something else in the archives," Colin said quietly. "Something I decoded last month. I have not told anyone yet." Lisa looked at him. What is it? A warning. The Velthrons were not killed by disease or disaster. They were killed by another species. The Kreth. A race of hunters who destroy every intelligent species they find. Lisa went very still. Are they still out there? Yes. And according to the star charts in the archives, they are expanding in our direction. They move slowly, taking centuries to colonize new systems. But they are coming. In about 100 years, maybe less, they will reach Earth. Does anyone else know this? The major governments know. That is why they are working together now, instead of fighting. For the first time in human history, every nation on Earth has agreed on something. We need to be ready. The United Earth Coalition formed 6 months after the warning was confirmed. It was not born from idealism or hope for world peace. It was born from cold necessity. The Kreth had destroyed the Velthrons, a species far more advanced than humanity. If humans were going to survive, they needed to unite. The construction of the first human starship began in orbit. They called it the Defender. It used Velthron technology, but with human modifications. The Velthrons had been scholars and artists. They had the technology to fight, but they lacked the cultural knowledge of warfare. Humans had plenty of that knowledge. Too much, perhaps. Colin watched the construction through a telescope at the Nevada research site. The ship was enormous, larger than any structure humans had ever built. It bristled with weapons that combined Velthron energy principles with human tactical thinking. It could fold space, allowing faster-than-light travel. It carried a crew of 500. They gave us everything, Colin said to himself. They were dying, and they still chose to help us. Why would they do that? He had spent years trying to understand Velthron thinking. Their culture was so different from human culture. They valued cooperation over competition. They valued knowledge over profit. They valued the good of everyone over the good of themselves. Not because they were forced to, but because they believed it was right. The final message from Commander Zelthrax had been the hardest to decode. It was encrypted with math so complex that it took 3 years and the combined efforts of every major university on Earth to crack. When they finally read it, Colin had cried. We give you this gift not because you have earned it, but because compassion requires no justification. Use it well. Remember us kindly. And prove that mercy is not weakness, but the highest form of strength. Compassion requires no justification. The Velthrons had given humanity the greatest gift imaginable. Not because humans deserved it, but simply because the Velthrons could give it. They had been dying, hopeless, facing the end of their entire species, and their last act had been one of pure kindness to creatures they had never met. We have to be worthy of this, Colin told Lisa one night as they reviewed the latest archive translations. They believed in us when we gave them no reason to believe. We have to prove they were right. Quote, what if we cannot? Lisa asked. What if we use their technology to destroy ourselves? What if we become just another dead civilization? Colin was quiet for a moment. Then he said, then at least we will have tried. The Velthrons did not give us this gift because they knew we would succeed. They gave it because they hoped we might. Hope is not about certainty. It is about possibility. The years passed quickly. Human technology advanced at an incredible pace. Ships were built, weapons were tested, alliances were formed. The United Earth Coalition grew stronger, and always, in the background, the knowledge that the Kreth were coming. Colin became the director of the Archive Integration Project. His job was to make sure Velthron knowledge was shared with everyone, not just the rich or powerful. The Velthrons had believed in equality. They had believed that knowledge should be free. Colin made sure their gift was used the way they would have wanted. His daughter Amy grew up surrounded by Velthron culture. She learned their language. She studied their art. She listened to their music. When she was 18, she joined the crew of the Defender as a xenolinguistics specialist. Colin was proud and terrified in equal measure. The Velthrons were pacifists, Amy told him before she left. They had all this technology, but they refused to use it for war. That is why they died. We are not pacifists, Dad. We will fight. But we will remember what they taught us. We will fight to protect, not to conquer. There is a difference. Colin hugged his daughter tight. Remember that difference, he said. Always remember it. The moment we become like the Kreeth, we lose everything the Velthrons died for. 3 years later, the Defender completed its first faster-than-light jump. The test was successful. The ship could travel between stars. Humanity was no longer confined to one small planet in one small system. The second test was less successful. The Defender detected a distress signal on the Velthron emergency frequency, a frequency that should have been silent for 3,000 years. Colin was in his office when he got the call. Captain Ryan Walsh of the Defender was on the screen, his face showing barely controlled excitement. Director Hayes, you need to hear this. It is a message on the Velthron frequency, and it is not old. It was sent yesterday. That is impossible, Colin said. The Velthrons are extinct. That is what we thought. Ryan replied. But someone is out there. Someone who speaks Velthron. Someone who is asking for help. The recording played. The voice was strange but beautiful. Speaking in the musical language Colin had spent years learning to understand. The translation scrolled across his screen. This is Science Vessel Luminous Dawn. We are under attack by Kreeth warships. Our shields are failing. To anyone who receives this message, we are Velthrons. We survived. We have been hiding for 3,000 years. If anyone can hear this, please help us. We do not want to die alone. Colin felt tears running down his face. They had survived. Some of them had survived. The Velthrons were not completely gone. Captain Walsh, he said, his voice shaking. Get there as fast as you can. Save them. The Velthrons gave us everything. Now it is our turn to give something back. Ryan nodded. Already on our way, Director. We will not let them down. The screen went dark. Colin sat in his office, thinking about Commander Zelthrax. That ancient commander had died, believing his compassion had been wasted on primitives who would never appreciate it. He had died thinking his species was gone forever. He had been wrong. We are coming, Colin whispered. We heard your echo, and we are coming to help. Captain Ryan Walsh stood on the bridge of the Defender and felt the weight of history pressing down on his shoulders. Every person on his crew knew they were about to do something that would be remembered forever. Around him, the bridge crew worked with calm efficiency. They had trained for this. They were ready. Jump drive charging, said Lieutenant Kate Morrison from her station. She was the chief engineer, and she knew the Velthron technology better than anyone. 90 seconds. Until we can fold space, Ryan nodded. The jump drive was one of the most incredible gifts in the archives. It did not move the ship through space. Instead, it folded space itself, bringing two distant points together. The ship simply stepped across the fold. The physics made his head hurt, but the results were undeniable. Humanity could now travel between stars. Sir, we are still receiving the distress signal, said Communications Officer Danny Price. He was young, barely 25, but he had a gift for languages. He spoke Velthron better than most humans. It is getting weaker. I think their power is failing. And how long until we can jump? Ryan asked. 60 seconds, Kate replied. Not fast enough. Override the safety protocols. Get me there in 30 seconds. Kate hesitated. Sir, that is dangerous. The drive needs time to stabilize. If we jump too soon, the fold might collapse while we are inside it. Noted. Do it anyway. Yes, sir. The Defender shuddered as the jump drive engaged prematurely. Space bent around the ship like water around a stone. Reality twisted in ways that human eyes were not meant to see. Then, with a sound like thunder that existed only in their minds, they were somewhere else. 3 massive ships hung in the void ahead of them. They were dark and angular, covered with armor that looked like overlapping scales. Weapons bristled from every surface. These were the Kreth warships, designed for one purpose only: destruction. Between them was a smaller vessel. It was beautiful despite its damage. Smooth curves instead of hard angles. Soft, blue light, glowing from its hull. But the light was flickering now. Fading. The shields were almost gone. "That is them," Danny said quietly. "That is a Velthron ship. They survived. They actually survived." Ryan felt something catch in his throat. For 3,000 years, humanity had believed the Velthrons were extinct. The gift-givers were gone. The compassionate ones were dead. But here they were, still fighting, still trying to survive after all this time. "Target the lead Kreth vessel," Ryan ordered. "Maximum power to forward weapons. And Danny, open a channel to that Velthron ship. Let them know they are not alone anymore." The weapons officer armed the guns. The defender carried weapons that combined Velthron energy technology with human tactical thinking. The Velthrons had understood the physics. Humans had understood how to turn that physics into something deadly. "Channel open," Danny said. "Velthron vessel. This is Captain Ryan Walsh of the human ship Defender. We received your distress call. We are here to help. Hold on just a little longer." For a moment, there was only static. Then, a voice came through, speaking in broken, accented English. "Human? The primitives? The violent children of Earth? You came? We grew up a bit," Ryan said. "And we owe you. Hold tight." The Defender opened fire. The lead Kreth ship never had a chance to react. Human weapons hit it from 3 directions at once. Kinetic rails accelerated to a fraction of light speed, punched through its shields. Plasma beams, guided by Velthron targeting systems, burned through its armor. The ship broke apart in a brilliant flash of light and debris. "Second target locking weapons on us," the tactical officer reported. "Incoming fire. Evasive pattern Delta. Return fire." The Defender moved like a dancer, spinning and weaving through space. The Velthron engines responded to thought as much as to controls. The ship dodged weapons fire that should have hit it. The Kreth had never fought an enemy like this before. They had never faced someone who combined advanced technology with human aggression. The second Kreth ship tried to flee, but the Defender was faster. The human ship caught it within seconds. More weapons fire. More destruction. The Kreth vessel died, without ever landing a single hit. The third Kreth ship made the smart choice. It jumped away, disappearing into folded space. Its hull was trailing atmosphere and sparks. It might not survive the journey, but at least it had escaped. Ryan allowed himself one deep breath. Then he opened the channel to the Velthron ship again. "This is Captain Walsh. The Kreth are gone. You are safe now. We are sending repair drones to help with your shields." The face that appeared on the screen made Ryan's breath catch. She looked almost human. 2 eyes, a nose, a mouth, but her skin had a faint blue tint, and there were patterns of light running through it like living tattoos. Her eyes were larger than human eyes, and they held a depth of emotion that was hard to describe. "I am Commander Silthia of the science vessel Luminous Dawn," she said. Her voice shook. "You are human. The species my ancestors chose to save. The primitives, who fought with rocks and fire. We prefer to think we have advanced a bit since then," Ryan said with a slight smile. Silthia's expression cycled through emotions. Shock, disbelief, hope, and then tears. They looked remarkably like human tears, running down her face in clear streams. 3,000 years ago, my people faced extinction. We thought we saved no one when we scattered our knowledge across the galaxy. We died believing our compassion had been wasted, that no one would ever find what we left behind. You were wrong, Ryan said firmly. Your ancestors gave us the tools to save ourselves. They gave us medical knowledge that cured our diseases. They gave us engineering principles that let us reach the stars. They gave us philosophy that helped us build a better world. Everything we are now, we owe to them. And now we are going to use everything they gave us to save you. There are so few of us left, Cynthia said. Her voice was small now. Fragile. Perhaps 100,000, scattered across a dozen hidden colonies. We have spent 3,000 years running and hiding. We tried to fight back once, but we are not warriors. We are scientists and artists. We do not know how to wage war. That is fine, Ryan said. Because we do. Your ancestors showed us compassion when they had nothing to gain from it. We intend to honor that gift. Commander Cynthia, on behalf of the United Earth Coalition, I formally offer you our protection and alliance. Cynthia closed her eyes. When she opened them again, they were filled with tears. For 3,000 years, we have echoed in the darkness. Alone. Hunted. Certain that the universe had forgotten what compassion meant. Certain that kindness had died. With our ancestors. The universe did not forget, Ryan said gently. It just took a while for the echo to come back to you. The repair work took 3 days. Human engineers worked alongside Velthron scientists, learning from each other. The cultural differences were huge. Velthrons approached every problem with careful analysis and patience. Humans tended to try things first and figure out why they worked later. Kate Morrison spent hours talking to the Velthron engineer named Pelthar. He showed her systems that human technology was decades away from understanding. She showed him human improvements to Velthron weapon designs. They argued about physics. They shared meals. Your people are remarkable, Pelthar told Kate on the second day. You took our knowledge and advanced it in ways we never imagined. We gave you the principles. You found applications we never considered. You gave us the foundation, Kate replied. But we built our own house on it. That is what your ancestors wanted, right? For us to learn and grow, not just copy what you did. Yes, Pelthar agreed. Though I think they would be surprised by how aggressive your growth has been. In 3,000 years, you went from primitive to spacefaring. It took us 10,000 years to do the same. We had help, Kate said. Amazing help. From people who owed us nothing but gave us everything anyway. 1. On the third day, the luminous dawn was ready to travel again. Commander Cynthia invited Captain Walsh and his senior officers aboard for a meeting. The Velthron ship was beautiful inside. Soft curves and gentle lighting. Everything designed for comfort and efficiency. Art covered the walls. Music played softly in the background. It felt like a university campus, not a military vessel. We are not warriors, Cynthia explained as she showed them around. Even our military ships are primarily designed for science and exploration. We added weapons after the Kreeth came, but it goes against our nature. We find violence disturbing in ways that are hard to explain. Then you are lucky you found us, said Lieutenant Danny Price. Because we find violence disturbingly easy. It is one of our worst traits. But sometimes, it is also necessary. Cynthia led them to a room filled with displays showing star charts. These are the locations of our hidden colonies. 12 worlds, scattered across 3 sectors. We have perhaps 120,000 people left, out of billions. We are all that remains of a civilization that once spanned 50 star systems. Ryan studied the charts. How many Kreeth ships are hunting you? We estimate perhaps 300 warships actively searching. Plus, their support vessels and garrison forces. They are determined to finish what they started 3,000 years ago. Not anymore, Ryan said. We are going to need to coordinate with Earth Command, but I can tell you right now what our response will be. You saved humanity. Now humanity is going to save you. All of you. But why? Cynthia asked. You barely know us. Your species has so many problems of your own. Why spend resources protecting aliens you just met? Ryan thought about how to answer. Finally, he said, your ancestors left us a message. Commander Zelthrax recorded it just before he died. He said that compassion requires no justification. He gave us everything without knowing if we deserved it. Simply because he could give it. How can we do anything less for you? Bye. Cynthia was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, Zelthrax was my ancestor. My family line traces directly back to him. He was a philosopher and a dreamer. Many of our people thought he was foolish for giving our knowledge to primitives. They said it was a waste of our final days. He was not foolish, Ryan said firmly. He was wise. He understood something important. That compassion is an investment in the future. Your ancestors invested in humanity. Now, we are paying dividends. I wish he could see this. Cynthia said softly. I wish he could know that his compassion was not wasted, that it echoed across 3,000 years and came back to save his descendants. Maybe he does know, Kate said. Maybe somewhere, somehow, he is watching and smiling. The journey back to Earth took 2 weeks. The luminous dawn traveled alongside the Defender, 2 ships from 2 different worlds flying together through the stars. During the journey, humans and Velthrons shared meals and stories. They learned about each other's cultures. They became friends. When Earth finally appeared on the view screen, Cynthia stood beside Ryan on the bridge and stared at the blue planet in wonder. This is where our gift landed, she said. This is where my ancestors chose to invest their last hope. They chose well, Ryan replied. Welcome to Earth, Commander. Welcome home. Admiral Karen Foster looked at the tactical display showing 3 sectors of space. Across those sectors, human and Velthron forces were working together to strike Kreeth military bases. The enemy, who had spent millions of years as hunters, were now learning what it felt like to be prey. 4th Fleet reports successful attack on the Kreeth supply convoy, said Commander Greg Phillips. He was her aide, a sharp young officer who had proven himself in a dozen battles. All enemy vessels destroyed or captured, no friendly losses, and the civilians they were transporting to work camps evacuated before the Kreeth could reach them. 3,000 Velthrons are now safe. The medical teams say most of them are malnourished but will recover. Karen nodded, feeling a grim satisfaction. The Kreeth had been using Velthron survivors as slave labor for 3,000 years. Finding and freeing those slaves had become a priority mission for the combined fleet. Every Velthron saved was a victory against the darkness. Admiral, priority transmission from Earth, Greg said. It is Director Hayes. The screen lit up with Colin Hayes' face. He looked older than the last time Karen had seen him. The years of managing the integration of 2 civilizations had taken their toll, but his eyes were still sharp, still determined. Admiral Foster, he said, without wasting time. We have decoded another section of the deep archive. There is something you need to know about the Kreeth. Karen felt a chill run through her. Go ahead, Director. The Kreeth were not always monsters, Colin said heavily. 2 million years ago, they were a peaceful species. They built cities. They created art. They explored their solar system peacefully. Then they encountered another species called the Shaleth, and the Shaleth tried to exterminate them. They survived, Karen said. Barely. Less than 1 million Kreeth out of billions. They survived by learning to be more vicious than their enemies. They developed weapons. They learned to strike first. They learned to show no mercy. And when they finally defeated the Shaleth, they decided to never be vulnerable again. They would kill every other intelligent species before those species could threaten them. Karen was quiet, processing this. So they became exactly what they feared. Yes, their entire civilization is built on trauma, on the memory of almost being wiped out. They cannot conceive of peaceful coexistence because their history taught them it is impossible. Every advanced species is a threat that must be eliminated. What are you trying to tell me, Director? Karen asked carefully. The Velthrons tried to reason with them 3,000 years ago. They offered friendship. They shared technology. They tried to show the Kreeth a better way. It cost the Velthrons their entire civilization. Colin paused, choosing his words carefully. Admiral, we have the Kreeth on the defensive now. Our combined forces are stronger. We could exterminate them completely if we chose to. The question is, should we? Are you suggesting we show them mercy? Karen asked. I am suggesting we show them something they have never encountered before. Strength, combined with compassion, the power to destroy them, but the choice not to. Victory without genocide. Colin leaned forward. Admiral, what would exterminating the Kreeth make us? Would we become just another species that solves problems through extinction? Is that the lesson we learned from the Velthrons? Karen looked at her tactical display. Red markers showed Kreeth positions across multiple systems. With the combined might of Earth and the Velthron remnant, total victory was within reach. They could end the Kreeth threat forever. But at what cost to their own souls? You are asking us to prove the Velthrons were right, Karen said slowly. To show that compassion is not weakness. I am asking us to honor the gift we were given, Colin said. Not just the technology, but the philosophy behind it. The Velthrons believed mercy was strength. They died for that belief. We have the chance to prove they were not wrong. Karen turned to Greg. Get me a channel to all fleet commanders, and connect me to Commander Silthia. When the Velthron appeared on screen, Karen said, Commander, I need your honest opinion. If we offered the Kreeth peace, real peace with genuine security guarantees, could they accept it? Silthia's bioluminescent patterns flickered thoughtfully. My ancestors tried once and failed, but they were weak when they made the offer. You are strong. The Kreeth respect strength. They understand power. Perhaps if the offer came from a position where you could destroy them but chose not to, perhaps then they might listen. That is a big perhaps, Greg said quietly. Yes, Silthia agreed. But is it not worth trying? My people died believing that peace was impossible, that compassion was weakness. If you can prove them wrong, if you can show that strength and mercy can coexist, then maybe their deaths will have meant something more. Karen made her decision. Draft a message to the Kreeth hierarchy. Use their language. Make sure they understand every word. The message went out on all Kreeth military frequencies. It was broadcast in their own language, translated by Velthron linguists and human xenopsychologists working together. Karen recorded it herself, standing in full uniform, with the combined fleet visible in the background. To the Kreeth hierarchy. This is Admiral Karen Foster of the United Earth Coalition. We know your history. We know about the Shaleth. We know that 2 million years ago, another species tried to exterminate you, and you survived by learning to kill first. We understand why you do what you do. She paused, letting that sink in. But understanding does not mean acceptance. You have killed billions across thousands of years. You destroyed the Velthrons, who offered you only friendship. You enslaved the survivors. You spread fear and death wherever you go. You have become the very thing you once feared. Another pause. We could respond in kind. We have the strength to end your civilization just as you ended the Velthrons. Our weapons are powerful. Our resolve is strong. We could hunt you down system by system and eliminate you completely. But we choose a different path. Really now. Our mind is mated. Our mind is made as made as may. Our mind is made as made as may. Our mind is made as made as may. Our mind is made as made as made as may. Our mind is made as made as made as. Our mind is made as made as made as made as. Our mind is made as made. Karen leaned forward, her eyes hard. We offer you one chance for peace. Not because you deserve it. Not because you have earned it. But because compassion requires no justification. Stand down your forces. Open negotiations. Learn that not every species in the galaxy is your enemy. Discover that strength can be used to protect rather than destroy. Or continue this war and discover that humans, unlike the Velthrons, are very good at fighting. The choice is yours. You have 72 hours. The message ended. Karen sat back in her chair and waited. Admiral, the Joint Chiefs are calling, Greg said. They want to know if you cleared this with them first. I did not, Karen said calmly. This was my decision. If it goes wrong, the responsibility is mine alone. And if it goes right, then maybe we prove that 3,000 years ago, a dying species made the right choice when they showed compassion to violent primitives. The first response came in 12 hours. It was not from the Kreth hierarchy. It was from a Kreth military commander named Vorath. His message was brief. Human Admiral, I have fought for 300 years. I have killed thousands. I have never been offered peace by an enemy who had the power to destroy me. I do not know if I believe you, but I am willing to listen. If you are willing to talk, more messages followed. Some were hostile, calling the offer a trick. Some were confused, unable to comprehend why a victorious enemy would offer peace. But some, a small but growing number, expressed a cautious willingness to negotiate. The Kreth hierarchy remained silent for 60 hours. Karen spent those hours preparing for both outcomes. If the Kreth rejected the offer, the combined fleet was ready to strike. If they accepted, diplomatic teams were prepared to begin negotiations immediately. At hour 60, the response came. War leader Kreth appeared on screen. He was imposing, all sharp edges and armored plates. His species had evolved for war. Everything about him spoke of violence and strength, but his eyes held something Karen had not expected to see: uncertainty. Human Admiral, he said in his harsh, clicking language. The translation software rendered it into English. You claim to understand our history. You claim to know why we do what we do, but you cannot understand. You have never faced total extinction. You have never had to choose between your morals and your survival. You are right, Karen said. Humanity has never been pushed to that edge, but we have been given the tools to survive by a species that was pushed to that edge. The Velthrons could have died with bitterness in their hearts. Instead, they chose compassion. They gave everything to strangers who might have wasted it. They bet their entire legacy on hope, and they died for it, Kreth said. No, Karen replied firmly. They died because you killed them. But their ideas survived. Their compassion survived. And now that compassion has grown strong enough to offer you what you never offered them: a choice. Kreth was silent for a long moment. Behind him, other Kreth leaders stirred and whispered. For 2 million years, we have known only war, Kreth finally said. Every species we encountered, we destroyed before they could destroy us. It was the only logic that kept us alive, the only path we knew. But we are tired, Human Admiral. So tired. The wars never end. The fear never stops. We kill, and kill, and kill, and still we are afraid. Then stop being afraid, Karen said. Join us. Help us build something better. The Velthrons believed that different species could coexist peacefully. They died before they could prove it. But we can prove it. Together. You would trust us? Kreth asked. After everything we have done? No, Karen said honestly. Not immediately. Trust is earned. But we are willing to give you the chance to earn it. We are willing to bet that you can be more than your trauma. More than your fear. Another long silence. Then Kreth said, we will need guarantees, security measures, verification systems. We have 2 million years of instinct telling us this is a trap. We will negotiate everything, Karen promised. We will build systems that work for everyone. It will not be easy. It will take time. But it is possible. Why? Kraith demanded. Why do this? You have us beaten. You could finish us. Why offer peace? Karen thought about Commander Zelthrax, that ancient Velthron, who had chosen hope over despair. She thought about Colin Hayes and his daughter Amy, working to honor a gift given by beings they had never met. She thought about Silthia and the Velthron survivors, who had spent 3,000 years in darkness waiting for a light that almost never came. Because 3,000 years ago, Karen said, someone showed humanity compassion when we had given them no reason to. They believed in us when we were violent and primitive. They invested everything in the hope that we might become better. How can we do anything less for you? Kraith looked at her for a long time. Then, slowly, he said, we accept your offer to negotiate. We will send representatives. We will talk. But know this, Human Admiral. If this is a trick, if you betray us, we will fight until not one of us remains alive. Understood, Karen said. And know this, War Leader Kraith. If you break this peace, we will finish what we started. We offer you compassion, not weakness. I would expect nothing less, Kraith replied. The negotiations began 3 weeks later. The negotiation chamber aboard Station Sanctuary was designed by both human and Velthron architects working together. It was a space that spoke of strength and peace in equal measure. Through one viewport, Earth's blue surface was visible, a reminder of where the gift had been given. Through another viewport, the stars of Velthron space glowed softly, a reminder of what had been lost. Colin Hayes sat across from War Leader Kraith. The massive Kreeth warrior looked uncomfortable in the diplomatic setting. His species had evolved for battle, not conversation. But he was here, not resent. That alone was remarkable. You could have destroyed us, Kraith said in his harsh language. Your fleet had us surrounded. Our military was broken. Our worlds were vulnerable. Why did you stop? Because 3,000 years ago, a dying people showed my species compassion, Colin replied. He spoke slowly, letting the translation software work. They had nothing to gain. They gave us everything anyway. They believed that mercy was not weakness, but the highest form of strength. We are here to prove them right. Kraith's mandibles clicked, a sound that human xenopsychologists had identified as confusion. The Velthrons. We remember them. They were weak. They talked when they should have fought. We crushed them easily. You crushed their bodies, Colin said. But their ideas survived. They are sitting in this room right now, shaping everything that happens here. That is a form of victory you cannot achieve with weapons. Commander Silthia spoke from her position at the table. Her bioluminescent patterns glowed softly in the chamber's light. My ancestors gave humanity knowledge, but more importantly, they gave them an example. They showed that a civilization's worth is measured not by its power to destroy, but by its willingness to help. The humans learned that lesson. The question is whether you can learn it too. Kraith was silent for a long time. Around him, his advisors shifted nervously. Finally, he spoke. For 2 million years, we have known only war. Every species we encountered, we destroyed before they could destroy us. It was survival. It was necessity. It was the only logic we knew. He paused. But we are tired. So tired. The wars never end. The killing never stops. We fight, and still we are afraid. Perhaps it is time to try something different. It will not be easy, Admiral Karen Foster said from her position at the military table. Our species will need generations to learn to trust each other. There will be mistakes. There will be conflicts. There will be people on all sides who resist peace. But if we start now, Colin added, if we make the commitment now, then maybe our grandchildren will live in a galaxy where compassion is not seen as weakness, where different species can coexist without destroying each other. Kraith looked at each of them in turn. humans, Velthrons, even a few representatives from species that had been liberated from Kreth occupation. You offer us what we offered no one. You show us mercy when we showed none. Why should we believe this is genuine? Colin leaned forward. Because 3,000 years ago, someone believed in humanity when we had given them no reason to. The Velthrons were dying. They were in pain. They had every reason to be bitter, but they chose hope instead. They chose to invest everything in the possibility that we might become better than we were. He pulled up a holographic display showing the 7 archive sites on Earth. They hid their knowledge in 7 locations. Medical science that cured our diseases. Engineering principles that let us reach the stars. Philosophy that helped us build better societies. They gave us everything, expecting nothing in return. And their gift changed us. Cynthia activated another display, showing Velthron history. My people spent 10,000 years building a civilization based on knowledge and compassion. When the war came, we tried to fight, but it was not in our nature. We died believing we had failed, that our way of life was proof that compassion was weakness. She looked directly at Kraith. But we were wrong. Our compassion did not die with us. It spread. It infected another species, and now that species is strong enough to offer you the same gift we would have offered if we had won our war. The cycle does not have to continue. Violence does not have to breed more violence. The negotiations lasted 3 weeks. They were difficult, painful, full of arguments and setbacks. The Kreeth wanted security guarantees. The humans wanted verification systems. The Velthrons wanted justice for 3,000 years of genocide. Everyone wanted protection from future betrayal. But slowly, carefully, an agreement took shape. The Kreth would stand down their military forces over a 5-year period. Human and Velthron observers would verify compliance. In exchange, the Kreeth would receive access to medical technology that could help heal the genetic damage their constant warfare had caused. They would receive assistance rebuilding their devastated economy. They would be welcomed into the Galactic Cooperative Council as full members. There would be tribunals for war crimes, but with a focus on truth and reconciliation rather than pure punishment. There would be reparations, but structured in ways that would not cripple Kreth society. There would be exchange programs, cultural integration efforts, and joint scientific missions. It was not perfect. It would never satisfy everyone. But it was a start. The peace accords were signed on a day that would be remembered across the galaxy. Representatives from 3 species put their marks on the document. War leader Kraeth's hand shook slightly as he signed. Colin suspected it was the first time the warrior had ever done something this frightening with just a pen. This is the strangest battle I have ever fought, Kraeth said after the signing. No weapons. No blood. Just words. And hope. I do not know if I trust it. Good, Karen said. Trust should be earned, not given freely. We will earn yours. You will earn ours. And maybe, in time, this will feel less strange and more normal. On Earth, in the museum built around the first archive site in Nevada, a new wing was opened to commemorate the peace. It contained the full record of the negotiations, the arguments and compromises, the moments of breakthrough and the moments of near failure. Everything was documented, preserved for future generations to study. But the centerpiece of the wing was the same as it had always been. The holographic recording of Commander Zelthrax's final message. Playing on an endless loop, we give you this gift, not because you have earned it, but because compassion requires no justification. Use it well. Remember us, kindly, and prove that mercy is not weakness, but the highest form of strength. Below the display, carved in stone in a dozen languages, were new words. They showed us compassion, and we rewarded them with echoes that will resound across the galaxy forever. Colin stood before the display 1 year after the peace accords were signed. His daughter Amy stood beside him with her own children. His granddaughter Sophie was 8 years old now, bright and curious about everything. "Grandpa, did we do the right thing?" Amy asked quietly. "Showing mercy to the Kreth? They killed so many Velthrons. They caused so much pain." At 8, Colin was quiet for a moment, thinking. The Velthrons could have kept their knowledge to themselves. They could have died with their secrets. Instead, they gave everything to violent primitives who might have wasted it. He looked at his daughter. "We took that gift and became something better. We cured diseases. We ended poverty. We reached the stars. We united Earth. All because someone showed us compassion when we did not deserve it. How could we not pass that gift forward?" 1. "But what if the Kreth betray us?" Amy asked. "What if they are just waiting for a chance to strike?" "Then we will deal with that when it comes," Colin said. "But if we had refused to take the chance, if we had chosen genocide over hope, then we would have proven the Velthrons wrong. We would have shown that their compassion was wasted. I refuse to let that be true." Sophie tugged at his sleeve. "Grandpa, my teacher says there are Velthrons and Kreth and humans all working together now on the new space station. Is that true?" Colin knelt down and smiled at her. "Yes, sweetheart. 3 species that used to be enemies are now building things together. Learning from each other. Becoming friends. That is good," Sophie said seriously. "The Velthrons were nice to give us their stuff. We should be nice too. Af. We should be nice too. Af." Colin felt tears prick his eyes. Out of the mouths of children came the simplest truths. "Yes," he said. "We should be nice too." Outside the museum, ships from 3 species flew together through Earth's sky. A human destroyer flying alongside a Velthron science vessel and a Kreth transport. They were headed for the joint research station being built in orbit, a place where scientists from all 3 species would work together on projects that benefited everyone. There were still problems, of course. Still conflicts and misunderstandings. Still people on all sides who resisted the peace. Change was slow. Trust was fragile. But it was happening. In the Velthron colonies, survivors who had spent 3,000 years hiding could now walk freely. They taught classes at human universities. They shared their art and music. They watched in wonder as the species their ancestors had saved now worked to save them in return. In Kreth space, the weapons factories were being converted into manufacturing centers for peaceful goods. The warrior culture was slowly, painfully, learning new ways to measure worth beyond battle. Young Kreth were studying philosophy and art alongside humans and Velthrons. It was strange for them, uncomfortable, but also, in ways they could not quite express, liberating. Colin visited Commander Cynthia in her quarters on the orbital station 3 months after the peace accords were signed. She had aged in the year since they first met. The stress of seeing her people finally safe had taken its toll. "I wish Commander Zelthrax could see this," Cynthia said, looking out at the stars. "That it echoed across 3,000 years and came back to save his descendants." "Maybe he does know," Colin said. "I like to think that somewhere, somehow, he is watching, and that he is proud." "Do you believe in an afterlife, Colin Hayes?" "I believe in echoes," Colin replied. "I believe that what we do reverberates forward through time. Zelthrax cast his stone into the pond of the universe 3,000 years ago. We are still feeling the ripples. In that sense, he is still very much alive." Cynthia smiled. It was a sad smile, but there was hope in it too. "Then let us make sure the echo continues. Let us teach our children what my ancestors taught yours. That compassion requires no justification. That mercy is strength. That hope is worth the risk." "Agreed," Colin said. They stood together, watching the ships move through space. Human, Velthron, and Kreth vessels working side by side, building something new, something better. The echo was still spreading. 10 years later, The first joint colony was established on a neutral world, humans, Velthrons, and Kreth living together, learning to coexist. There were difficulties, certainly, cultural clashes and misunderstandings, but also friendships, marriages between species, children who grew up knowing that the galaxy was bigger and more wonderful than any single species could comprehend. 20 years later, the Galactic Cooperative Council welcomed its first new member species, the Rethians, a peaceful people who had been hiding from the Kreth for centuries, came out of isolation. They had been preparing for war. Instead, they found peace. 50 years later, Colin Hayes died peacefully in his sleep. He was 93 years old. His last words were about Zelthrax and the gift that had changed everything. His grandchildren made sure those words were recorded and added to the Archive Museum. 100 years later, the galaxy was almost unrecognizable from what it had been. The Cooperative Council had grown to include 15 species. War still happened, but it was rare. Most conflicts were resolved through negotiation and compromise. The old ways of extinction and genocide were remembered as barbaric practices from a darker time, and through it all, the archives remained. 7 crystal matrices buried in Earth, holding the complete record of Velthron civilization. New generations still studied them, still learned from them, still marveled at the compassion of a dying people who chose hope over bitterness. The echo that Commander Zelthrax had sent into the darkness 3,000 years ago had become something far greater than he could have imagined. It had become a foundation, a philosophy, a way of life that spread from species to species across the galaxy. They had shown compassion to humanity, and humanity had rewarded them with echoes that would never fade.